There was a professor at a large Midwestern university who had a friend who came to visit him. And after visiting for about an hour or so in the professor's office, there was a knock at the door. And a student was there wanting to get some advice from the professor. So the professor invited him in and was very gracious to him, and the student left. Then there was another knock. Another student. And after that student, another knock, and another student. It went on and on. And finally, the visitor said, Professor, I don't see how you get any work done with all of these interruptions. And the professor said, well, you know, at first, I kind of resented all of the interruptions to my work. But then after a while, it dawned on me that all of these interruptions were my work. You know, the professor could have locked himself in his office and did all of his papers and prepared his classes and not see anybody. And he would have lived a very quiet life, I'm sure. But as it was, he was too unselfish, too generous for that. And so he decided he was going to make his students his work, to make his work availability to his students. And it's no wonder that he was one of the most beloved professors in the university, as well as one of the happiest. Well, you know, to be unselfish is a difficult thing. Sometimes it's perhaps a little bit easier than at others. Like, for instance, if there's a good deed that we want to do, if we can choose what we want to do and be in the right mood for it and have the right timing, then it's okay. Like, for instance, if I have a neighbor who's elderly and needs to go see his doctor, I can plan next Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock to go pick him up and take him to his doctor. No big deal. It'd be fine. I'd enjoy doing that. But that's not the way things usually work out. Often it's a little more difficult because we don't choose necessarily that what we're being requested to do, and we may not be in the mood, or it may be sprung on us at the last minute. In those times, it takes a lot of generosity, a lot of flexibility. It takes sometimes a lot of sacrifice to do that. Well, there was a registered nurse named Mary, and Mary usually worked 12-hour shifts. And after a particularly long week at work, Mary looked forward to the 4-day weekend that she was going to have. And she was planning maybe for part of the first day to just sleep, because she was pretty tired, really, after the week. And she had also planned to then drive to the neighboring town to visit her sister, whom she had not seen for some time. And they were planning on going shopping. So Mary was thinking about this as she was getting ready for bed that night when the phone rang. And it was the head nurse in the hospital. And she said, Mary, there are 3 of our nurses who are sick with the flu, and the hospital is full of patients. Is there any way that you could possibly come in this weekend? Well, Mary knew that what it was like to be shorthanded at the hospital with a lot of patients. She also knew that the supervising nurse had also had a long, hard week, and that she would also be there on the weekend. So Mary said, yes, I'll show up tomorrow morning. It took some generosity to do that. It took some flexibility. It took some real sacrifice to really care about somebody, to change your plans at the last minute to help somebody else. It might be a consolation to us to know that this also happened to Jesus. We read about it in the gospel today, where the apostles and Jesus have been working really hard helping the people, ministering to them, healing them, teaching them, maybe helping them in a variety of ways. And they were both, all of them were pretty tired. So Jesus said, well, look, let's take a break. Let's go off to some quiet place for a little R&R. And we've been at it for a pretty long time now. I think we can do that. So they got into a boat and took off across the lake. Unfortunately, the people had gotten word of where they were going. So they actually beat them to the place where they were going. And that you can imagine their feeling as they got out of the boat and they saw this big crowd there in front of them, wanting them to minister to them, to heal their sick, to teach them, and to help them in a variety of ways. Well, Jesus was not resentful. He was not annoyed. He was generous, and he immediately helped them. He saw them as sheep without a shepherd, and he had pity on them. And so Jesus is our great example of generous, loving care for others. And it takes sacrifice. There's no question about it. But, you parents know what that's all about. How many of you have gotten up in the middle of the night to care for a sick child? You know a lot more about that than I do. So it's not a new thing, and we're all capable of generous, gracious, helping others, even when it's inconvenient. Selfishness is kind of a prison, a self-imposed prison. It restricts us, prevents us from living life to the fullest. And to love, that is liberating, that frees us. Love can set us free. I have a little prayer I'd like to share with you. I entitled this prayer, Jesus Interrupted. Jesus, Lord, you show the way to live life graciously, with mercy, love, and pity too. You lived unselfishly. When it was convenient to, indeed, you did respond. But also when it wasn't so, your love was deep and strong. When you were interrupted, Lord, you were not upset. When you were imposed upon, you did not fume or fret. Jesus interrupted, inconvenienced by the crowd. You cared and shared and ministered with great love. You are endowed. You gave yourself so generously, your kindness always true. Teach us, dear Lord, and give us strength to serve and follow you.